Good evening and welcome. This is the March 27th, 2024 public hearing of the Land Use Commission. The City Code directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses including planned developments, zoning relief, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo?
Here.
Commissioner Halleck?
Here.
Commissioner Hugo?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson is walking to the dais, so I'll mark him here. Commissioner Linwall? Commissioner Menichev?
Here.
Commissioner Pactel?
Here.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Here.
Chair Rogers?
Here. We do have a quorum present, and also present from city staff tonight are Neighborhood and Land Use Planner Megan Jones and Zoning Administrator Melissa Klotz. This is a formal hearing, and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time so that all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding any matter on tonight's agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. After that, persons wishing to make a statement regarding the matter will have a chance to do so. Any person with a legal interest in property located within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the commission will close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal finding of facts based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, the commissioner's knowledge of the community, and the recommendations of staff. All testimony is taken under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards contained in the zoning ordinance and the corresponding staff memorandum. When testifying, please state your name and address for the record and sign in on the provided public comment sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you're at a microphone when asking and making statements so that you may be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We have one case on the agenda this evening, that being 530 Kedzie Street. Is the applicant here? All right, thank you. Before we move on to that, though, I will note for the record that the meeting minutes are not available, so we will not be approving any meeting minutes this evening. And with that, I will ask if, is this you? If Ms. Klotz would please read the record, read the case into the record, please.
David Liebert and Stephen Liebert, lessees, submit for a special use for a tattoo and body art establishment, Sweetheart Inc., in the C1A Commercial Mixed Use District, Section 610.3.3. The Land Use Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, the determining body for this case, in accordance with Section 635 of the Evanston Zoning Code.
Would anybody who may be speaking to us on this matter tonight please be sworn at this time by raising your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. And if the applicant would like to step up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Liebert. I live at 1317 West Greenleaf, apartment 1 in Chicago, in Rogers Park.
All right, and if you would please tell us about the proposal.
Absolutely. Thanks for hearing our special use application, taking it under considerations. Again, it's for a tattoo body art establishment as defined by your city ordinance. Thanks to Melissa also for helping kind of shepherd us through this process. It's not something we do every day. Again, my name is Steve Liebert. This is David Liebert. We're father and son. You could figure out who's who here. David is the president and owner of Sweetheart Inc. David is a tattoo artist. I'll give David time to give a little bit of his background and expertise. But David's going to be running the day-to-day operations. I am more the back office business manager. I'm the treasurer of the operation. I do not have an ownership interest in the operation, and I'm also kind of shepherding this through the approval process with the city. Instead of reading you all the application, I'm going to kind of go over the highlights and then leave some time for David to introduce himself and give you a little bit more details on the technical and day-to-day operations, and leave time for the public or the commissioners to pose any questions, and we'll answer them as best as we can. So again, the location is at 530 Kedzie, which is the southeast corner of Kedzie and Chicago. It's on the hard corner, and it is the very corner of the Amley mixed-use multifamily development that runs along Chicago Avenue. The adjacent uses to the premises for our unit are immediately to the south is Who's Your Mama Pie Company that you're all probably familiar with, and immediately to the east along Kedzie is a physical therapy office. The premises is a live-work unit with the proposed tattoo studio on the ground floor, the first floor only, and a residential unit in the mezzanine second floor level. The tattoo operations will only be on the first level. The second level will be closed off to the public. David will be residing in the residential unit right above. In terms of the premises as they are right now, there's a floor plan in the application packet. We do not need to do any build out or really any renovations other than setting up actual workstations, bringing in furniture. There'll be 3 artist stations, reception area, a consulting and waiting area. There's already an ADA compliant restroom in the back, and there is a hand sink as well, which is important to comply with the health department regulations, both the state of Illinois and Evanston. The services provided are only going to be tattoo art. We're not proposing piercings or scarification or any other types of body alteration. In terms of compliance, we will fully comply with federal, state, municipal regulations. Really, the only federal regulation is with regard to OSHA compliance to be certified in bloodborne pathogen training, which is a certification that'll be held by every artist in the studio. The state regulations, both the Illinois Statute Tattoo and Body Piercing Registration Act and the Illinois Department of Public Health Body Art Code, they are lengthy regulations. We plan on abiding by all of them as they relate to this business. The Illinois Department of Public Health is the entity that provides the certificate of registration for this type of establishment. We have to make application with them. We have to pass their inspection. In my conversations with Evanston Health and Human Services Department, they do not issue a registration or certificate or anything along those lines, but they will also do an inspection, and that was according to Ellen Golden. And lastly, Amley Residential, they have their own rules and regulations that we'll be abiding by, and of course the terms of our lease with them. The operations will be tattoo only, no piercings. The clients will be age 18 and up. Artists will also be age 18 and up. They will all be certified, again, in the bloodborne pathogens training. They will all be trained and proficient artists. They will be trained directly or vetted by David. And lastly, hours, access, and parking per Evanston Code. For this special use, we are proposing to that the hours of 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week, again in compliance with your code. Most clients will be handled by appointment. We will accept walk-ins if there are walk-ins and there are artists available, but the vast majority of the work done will be by appointment. And lastly, in terms of parking, clients will be able to park in the Amley building. There is retail parking areas there. There's also metered and unmetered street parking that's available. Employees, again, there's only three artist stations, and David will have one of them, so we're talking about potentially 2 other employees. David, as a resident of the Amley residential building, will have his own dedicated spot, so now we're down to 2 potential parking spaces, assuming they don't take CTA, which the stop is about 500 feet from this location. So they will be parking either in the Amley retail area or on unmetered spots in the surrounding streets. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to David just to add a little bit of information on himself and the shop and open it up to questions from the commission.
Hi there. So yeah, I'm David, and I've been a tattoo artist professionally for 6 years. The way that I was trained was a formal apprenticeship, and I was trained in not only how to tattoo correctly, but also how to tattoo safe. And that's been a huge concern in the tattoo industry worldwide, is the safety, because it's one of the things that doesn't get tested very often. Now, luckily, there is the APT, which is the Alliance of Professional Tattooists, who's been working with the FDA on regulating inks and everything like that. And that legislature hasn't actually gone through yet, but they have been working with all the actual testing to make sure that everything is safe, and I have been up to date and a part of this group. And it's important to me to emphasize the safety of all of this, because in the day and age of Amazon and Temu and all of those other companies out there giving access to body modification tools without any certification, it's scary. So first and foremost, I want to say any tattoo artist at my shop will be vetted by me, but vetted by me in a way that is, you're certified in the bloodborne pathogens, yes, which anyone can go online and get a $30 bloodborne pathogen certificate and finish it in a couple of hours. But for this APT program, there is a 4-hour course that you take, and they go over everything that you need to do in every state. So that being said, I've also been involved in tattoo business mastery programs. I'm an alumni of it. It focuses on everything involved in tattooing that is not directly tattooing. How to deal with clients, how to make sure everything is very safe, and to make sure that everybody is having a good experience. And that's also a huge reason why I've chosen Evanston, is because of what this city really gives out, is the experience behind it too. Also, I've reinvested pretty much most of my profits into my education. So I take seminars from founders of actual tattooing that have been doing it for 30 plus years, and also famous specialization tattoo artists from around the world. I just got back from a convention last week from it. I did graduate from Columbia College for illustration and graphic design. I was specializing in concept art, and the coolest thing about being a tattoo artist is I get to do concept art for each person and bring their dream to life. So I want to make sure that I can make an environment that gives people a great experience for tattooing, but also is done in a very safe and professional way so that we can leave tattooing better than we found it and make sure that we can push forward in this industry. So that's a little bit of my background information. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away.
Commissioner Hewlett?
Question, where did you practice before this? In Chicago, or where did you, or did you?
Yeah, so I was trained in Rolling Meadows by Kurt Jacobson at Unbreakable Ink. I was there for about 5 years. Then I've been at Smart Ink in Bensonville for the past year. In between there, I've done conventions, and I'll tattoo at conventions and do guest spots at places. Yeah, that's where I've been the past 6 years.
Commissioner Hugo?
A question, more technical question, on the signage of the premises. You currently have there's a sign that says CK&A, small hanging sign. I expect, will that just be replaced with sign for the, are you having neon lights in the windows? What will be the signage, exterior look of
The signage will be using the same format as existing signage. We'll be giving them our artwork, so it'll look very similar in terms of that sign that's hanging off the side of the building. And then in the windows, we want to keep the windows semi-welcoming and clear, so they're not going to be blacked out or anything, but there may be some sort of etching. It's basically going to be what AMLE allows and what the city of Evanston allows, and that'll be on the inside of the windows. But I wouldn't expect flashing bright lights like you see in CBD shops and all the like. It'll be done tastefully and again according to AMLE's rules and regulations and whatever the city of Evanston allows. But it'll be pretty modest, actually.
what does the city of Evanston allow?
Very, very extensive signage regulations, but specifically.
Like in this case, what would be the,
At this property, I couldn't say exactly offhand, other than there is a unified sign plan for the entire AMLE development. And when there is a unified sign plan, then the property is not eligible for sign variations. So they will just have to comply with the regulations.
And AMLE has several of these small locations along Chicago and down Kedzie.
Correct.
And everything seems to be very modest, and I'm assuming that's all guided under their.
Correct. It does allow for the blade signs that are shown, and I can say with certainty that it does not allow for full blocking out of windows, so that would not be allowed.
and no neon lights flashing,
No flashing lights
pizza
allowed.
parlor, or whatever it is they wanted to say. Yeah, okay.
So you'll have 3 stations. You'll be manning one of those stations, obviously. Do you have other people in mind, or will you be looking for people, or?
As of right now, I do have some people in mind, but I don't have anybody in mind for this shop. They're just thoughts right now. I'm being very particular about who I'm hiring and making sure that I know that I'm going to get a lot of people coming up and trying to apply to get into the tattoo shop, and I'm going to be vetting them very hard to make sure that they are going to meet all the safety regulations and be able to technically meet the standard that we're trying to deliver.
Just want to add that 3 workstations, like industry-wide, that's a very small number.
Right.
If you've been to other tattoo studios, typically they're at least a half a dozen, but many times 10 or more. So I believe this is going to be the first tattoo studio, should be approved in the city, and it's going to be actually a very bite-sized piece as far as the size.
That was going to be my question. Yeah, it seems like there aren't any other tattoo shops in Evanston so far, so this is kind of a cool deal. Can you tell us just more about why you're interested in Evanston and why you thought this was the right place to start a new business?
You want to hear from the artist or from the business guy?
Both.
I'll tell you, initially we started looking at live-work type of locations. There's a lot in Chicago. They're very industrial, and they're down the block from 10 more tattoo shops. When I found this Amley spot, I was skeptical if like a tattoo studio would work. Then I looked at the zoning. Actually, before I did that, I Googled tattoo shops near me and saw nothing in Evanston. And I said, oh, okay, they don't allow it here. And then did some more digging and saw your ordinance from 2021, I believe, and was still kind of surprised that in the last couple of years that nobody has applied to open up a tattoo body art establishment. And that was kind of where it started, and just kept on building from there. I live in Rogers Park. I'm very familiar with Evanston. I grew up in Skokie. I think it's a great location for many reasons from a business perspective, and that's initially what I proposed to David, and then, there's a lot of things about Evanston from an art perspective, I think, that also, one, made it surprising that there isn't a tattoo studio open already, and two, yeah, we'd love to be the first one.
Just a clarification, I thought we did approve another tattoo studio closer to the center of downtown.
Good memory. There was one that went through the process. It was for cosmetic tattooing, like eyebrows, that type of thing, and it did open. It was on the south side of downtown. It has since closed.
I have a question.
Just a minute here. I want to let him.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So one of the main things about tattoos in general is it doesn't matter at the end of the day, like, oh, how good is this tattoo technically? You could get like the best tattoo of your life, and if your experience is thrown off by the location or the people in it, that's like stuck in your memory forever. And I've been in a lot of experiences, different tattoo shops, and there really aren't a lot that provide an environment that's cohesive with the type of tattoo experience that I'm trying to provide, and this city is perfect for it. When you get a tattoo by me, you're going to be able to come into close to a private studio, 3 booths, and then all the surrounding places you could think of to eat, scenery, like the getting to there is perfect. Like I could not dream of a better location. So on the art side of things, when you think of a perfect tattoo, you're allowed to have, your experience and the artwork at the same time, and this location provides both of those things. So that's why I picked it. Yeah.
Commissioner Ranchek?
I have the following question. Do you think that this tattoo shop may make conflict with the residential character of the building? I will give you some, let's say, additional questions. For instance, specific odors from the studio, specific waste, or any other thing that may be in conflict with the residential character of the building.
Sure. Well, in terms of the waste and how we're going to be getting rid of like our sharps containers and stuff, twice a year a company called Stericycle comes out and picks it up. In terms of garbage and disposal, part of the bloodborne pathogens training is to make sure that you know how to dispose of all these things properly. For example, I'm not pouring liquid into my garbage cans. I put a powder in there that makes it solid so that it doesn't splash everywhere. And like I said, with the Stericycle stuff, in terms of disposing of the waste, I believe you just make sure everything is packaged up properly, just like you would at a dentist's office, and it goes right in the dumpster. But there won't be an excessive amount of garbage.
There won't, in terms of interfering with the residential nature of the community, Amley is welcoming us. There will be no odors or smells coming from our location. There'll be way more smells coming from next door at Hoosier Mama and the pet supply place and things like that. So I think it's a very I don't think it'll have any impact. And when Amley's staff found out like what kind of business we wanted to open there, they were actually pretty excited about it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
So the Sweetheart Inc. address in Palatine, is that another tattoo studio, or is
No,
that?
that's where it's registered. That's where the business is registered for now. That's David's current home.
Got it,
It's
okay.
just my S corp is registered there. Yeah.
Okay, so you currently work at Smart Inc. in Bensonville?
Yes.
But you're not an owner, you're just an artist at that establishment?
Right. I rent a booth there, just like at a hair salon when people rent booths. So
Okay.
I'm not an employee of there.
Okay,
I'm self-employed working out of there.
got it. And so the Evanston location represents you going out on your own?
Yeah.
First location, and then Palatine is just the incorporated address.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And then I had a question. This is a question for staff, clarification. Just with the special use, and I apologize, I know we've talked about this before, but does the special use run with the business or the location or the particular owner?
The particular location of it, that exact unit.
Okay, and so if this business vacated a number of years from now and then another tattoo studio moved in,
Another tattoo studio of the same or less intensity could locate there if they locate within 1 year of the current studio closing.
okay, got it, thank you.
Commissioner Westerberg.
This is more of a question for staff, I think. Are there any concerns or restrictions with the live-work situation in terms of having more of a separation between the living and the work? This is looks like a circular stairway that leads up to the second floor. Does that need to be closed off for any reason?
I don't have concerns with it. I don't believe it will be an issue. I mean, it would take someone walking up those stairs, and being that it is a small space and there shouldn't ever be very many people in there, it would not be in the applicant's interest to allow that. So I really don't have
So,
concerns.
but there's nothing on the books that says they have to do anything with that.
No, there is a requirement in the zoning ordinance that says a tattoo establishment cannot be within a residence, but a live-work unit per the zoning ordinance is considered a commercial use, so it is covered no matter which way you look at it. It is a commercial use, and the commercial activity will only be in the commercial space.
Thanks.
As a practical matter, we intend on blocking off with a stanchion or something along those lines at both ends of the stairwell. And it's out in the open, so.
Just one last question from me. Oh, Myrna, go ahead.
I've got actually two questions. So the artists that you will have, the other two artists, will they be renting out a chair like the same situation you're in right now, or are they going to be actual employees?
Whether they're renting a chair or I'm taking a split from them, they're never going to actually be employed by me. They'll be self-employed and essentially be paying rent for their booth at where they're staying.
Okay. And then the second one is there a privacy area when you are tattooing? Because obviously you can't screen off the windows.
Mm-hmm.
So will there be a privacy area for obviously people who are getting tattoos with their
Not on their arm.
not on their arm?
Delicate tattoos, yeah. Yeah, we're actually, we have our photo area over there, and then in between each station, there's going to be an, like those walls that you can collapse and change behind, divider, I forgot
There'll
what
be
they're called.
privacy screening.
Yeah.
That will be mobile, so if someone is getting a tattoo in an area that needs privacy, that area will be blocked from the windows, it'll be blocked from
From the other artists?
artists and other
Okay.
clients as well.
Okay, thanks.
How many tattoos, how many clients would you anticipate seeing in a single day? I know it will vary based on the intensity of what they're getting tattooed, et cetera, but on an average day, what would you?
I guess I'll have to give 2 examples of it. So as we had mentioned, like we're mostly going to be appointment based. Currently with my current clientele, I usually work in half and full day appointments, meaning I don't tattoo more than 1 person a day, sometimes 2. In the case of the location that we're moving to, I do want to open up the opportunity to do smaller tattoos for people who are just getting tattoos. And in that case, the very most I could possibly tattoo in a day would be like 8, and that would be a very busy day. And if that becomes average, then fantastic. But it can't really be more than that. I physically wouldn't be able to. Each person is like a minimum of an hour, regardless of if the tattoo is 5 minutes or not, because of setup and breakdown and all of that.
So the most intense use that we would anticipate here with 3 artists is about 24 people, and that's the maximum that you think could ever be handled in a single day, but more likely it would be a much lower number than that.
Yeah, on average, definitely. In maximum capacity, wherever people are waiting to get in, we will actually have a list where they can like sign in and they'll get a text message to come back. I don't want people standing outside, and our waiting area is really only going to be for 2 people. So, yeah.
Any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, is there anything you'd like to say? I'll say, is there anybody from the public who would like to address us? But I don't see anybody from the public. I think the one person back there is with you.
Yes.
And so I'll just say, is there anything you'd like to say in summation before we begin deliberation?
I think we've shared everything that we could share. Hopefully we've answered your questions satisfactorily. Yeah, we're
All right.
excited to, hopefully make it past stage 1 here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
With that, we will close the public testimony on this case. I'll ask for general thoughts from the commission, but based on questions, I think I kind of know where we are. So maybe I'll ask, is there any particular concerns that anybody would like to see addressed in conditions other than the conditions that are on page 4 of the staff memo, which include hours of operation, the typical employees not using metered parking, compliance with certifications, training, licensing, that sort of stuff. If not, okay. In order to make a recommendation for approval to City Council, there are 9 standards that we must find are met. And we'll go through those standards quickly now. Anyone feel free to chime in if you think I've missed something. The first one being that it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. We had some testimony that I think this is a newer ordinance that even allowed tattoo salons. I think it's only about 4 years old, 3 years, 2 years old. Okay. But it is one that is allowed, so that standard is met. Number 2, it is in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. Obviously, the building that they're looking at is specifically designed for these live-work type environments, which is something that the city has worked hard to foster and find place for, as well as keeping our retail businesses in place. This is a busy area, lots of traffic. And so it's obviously something that we would rather have a functioning business in as opposed to an empty storefront. So this is in keeping with standard number 2. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood. We heard testimony from the applicant that the maximum number of stations that they will have at any one time is 3. And that it looks like on the best case in their eyes, the worst case in the city's eyes, it would be about 8 clients on a very busy day bringing 24 additional people to this particular area on those days, I don't think will have a negative effect. Again, this is designed for commercial space, and so that standard is met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. Obviously, their most immediate neighbors are all part of the Amley family, and therefore Amley, I'm sure, will be doing what they can to they would not be doing something that would be not in their best interest. We did have some discussion about the waste disposal, things like that. It seems like all of that has been handled. So I think that this particular location, having a business here, most people would probably not notice any huge change in their property values. So that standard is met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. This is a newer building that was a planned development, and I'm going to guess 10 years, 12 years ago, something like that. Anyway, it's been a while that it's been in operation, but the building was built specifically with these types of use in mind, and so I believe that standard is met. Number 6, it will not cause undue traffic congestion. We've heard nothing to that, but based on the number of clients that they're looking at, as well as the fact that this is on a major thoroughfare, as well as having public transit nearby, I don't anticipate any traffic congestion being caused by this business. It preserves significant historical and architectural resources. Again, there's nothing historical about this particular location. The building is a fairly new building. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. Nothing will be changing to the outside of the building, with the exception of signage, which it seems is fairly well regulated by Amley. And so I don't believe there's a problem with that standard. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. We have had discussion about the licensing that is required for this type of work. And the applicant has made it very clear that they intend to stay current on all of those certifications, and I have no reason to believe that there's anything that they would not comply with that they would be required to do. Those are my findings. Does everyone agree with my findings? With that, I will ask if there is a motion to recommend approval, and if we would include the conditions that are on page 4 as part of that motion.
I'll move to recommend approval for the case 24 ZMJV-0007 to City Council with a positive recommendation with all the conditions as described in the packet, including the additional staff recommendations on page 4.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo?
Yes.
Commissioner Halleck?
Yes.
Commissioner Hugo?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Murinchev?
Yes.
Commissioner Pucktell?
Yes.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
Yes. So with 8 votes in favor and none against, it will move forward to City Council with a positive recommendation. And city staff will let you know when you'll be appearing before Planning and Development and what the next steps are in your process. And good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The other item that we have on our agenda this evening is some Envision Evanston updates. So I don't know who, is that you?
That would be me.
I'll turn it over to Ms. Jones then.
All right, so I have a short update with regards to what's been going on, and then want to walk you through some of the questions that are within the meeting in a box, and then just open it up for questions. So this is what we will be going through. I think you pretty much already know what it is. And since we don't have anyone in the audience, I'll go through that pretty quickly. Just revisit the project map, talk about the outreach and what we've seen so far, and then just open it up for discussion. So as you're aware, we will be getting a brand new comprehensive plan and zoning code at the end of this process. And we are well overdue with the comprehensive plan not having been updated since 2000 and the zoning code not having a big overhaul since 1993. We have the 5 phases here. We are currently in the midst of phase 1, getting everyone's lived experience, and that's been a lot of outreach, community meetings, providing meeting in a box, enabling people to just email us comments if they've got them, and filling out surveys. And then we'll be going into developing a vision pretty soon. There's a little bit of overlap with some of these phases, especially with phase 1 and phase 2, but we are starting to lay the groundwork for the second phase. And of course, the later phases are more about getting feedback on the recommended vision once that is created, and then actually taking a look at the documents. Again, we've got multiple ways for the public to get involved. Online, we've got the website that is the hub for all of the information. People can access the surveys. There's a meeting calendar. They can access the meeting in a box and download that information as well. Again, we've got the community sessions that have been happening. People are able to host their own session. This is the meeting in a box that I've been mentioning. And that's something they can either pick up from several locations in town, the Civic Center, Robert Crown, and the Levy Center. And we will be having office hours where people can just drop in, or if they've got big ideas, they can just come in and share those with us. So as I mentioned, we are in the midst of engagement. This is what we had as of a week ago. We've got 5,690 website visits. We do notice that we've gotten 740 responses and 6 responses that are Spanish language. And this is as of last week. As of Monday, we actually got bumped up to 922 responses total. And we do have a few more Spanish surveys that were filled out as well. We do notice that after community meetings or ward meetings where this topic is discussed, there is a bump in those survey results. So that's something that we're hoping does continue with the various updates that we have. The meeting in a box that I mentioned, we at this point only have 2 that have been fully completed and submitted, but we have a number that have been scheduled to occur within the next several weeks.
Ask you a question? When you get these responses, do you, I don't know, plot them? Do you know what area of the city they're coming from? And it would be a cool graphic to see, I think, where most of the interested people are coming from. And then you could reach out to those areas that you're not getting a lot of responses from. So
for the meeting in a box specifically, there is some back-end information for like some demographics of the people that participated in that particular meeting in a box. It might not be geographically specific because there might be organizations that are doing it, and that may include people that are scattered throughout Evanston. For the surveys, we do ask for demographic information, like what ward you're in, how long you've been here, age, and that type of thing. So that gets a little bit more specific into where people are and how long they've been here, age, and that type of information.
Sorry, one more question. Do you have a sense of what a good response rate is for something like this? Do our consultants have some traction on that in the past?
So we've noticed that the city doesn't necessarily have a standard for the amount of feedback we want. We just want as much as possible. We are trying to really make sure that we reach populations that we don't necessarily hear from on a regular basis and have a more even spread of responses and not have one particular group that's completely above and beyond or that might skew their responses. So there's been a lot of additional feedback and discussion about how to reach a little bit of everybody on that end. We do.
Right now, do you know if it's skewed, if the responses are skewed one way or the other?
We are noticing that the responses are skewing towards older population. which is not really surprising. But we are trying to see if we can reach the younger population, because in 20 years, they will be the people who are like possibly even going to be sitting at this dais. So
And location or ethnically?
location-wise, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, there are a few wards that are seeing more responses. I want to say the 3rd ward and like 6th and 7th. But again, we're trying to, on a regular basis, kind of revisit the results at least like a couple times a week, seeing where we're getting those responses and if we need to pivot how we outreach to people.
Is every council member sort of hosting one of these in their wards, or do you know if that's underway?
Yes. So we've gotten a few ward meetings that have occurred where this is, if not the only thing on the agenda, it's one of the agenda items. So we've got several of those. We've got a number of those coming up, including one that is a triple joint ward meeting. So that'll be tomorrow, and then we've got a couple more that'll be scheduled in the next couple of weeks. So there's that.
Megan, could you go back to the timeline? Can you talk I guess I'm curious, like, once, I know we're in the like data collection feedback-ish phase. Can you talk more about like the next, like phase 2, like who's actually doing the drafting, and how should this group expect to be involved?
Good question. So for phase 2, that is where we will be doing more of a like visioning workshop, and that is more of a drill down activity to start creating the vision statement. From the information that we get from that workshop, then the consultant will be drafting a recommended vision and some associated recommendations with that. That'll also include the lived experience information that was gathered as well.
Okay.
So, all right. If there are no additional questions, I'm going to briefly walk you through the questions that are within our meeting in a box. It's only about like 6 or 7 questions, but depending on the group, it can be a short, like 30-minute session, or if you really want to talk, it could be several hours if you are so inclined to do so. So just to get started, I mean, the meeting in a box does provide a little bit of an introduction of what exactly is a zoning code, what is a comprehensive plan, starting to get kind of the juices flowing of having people think about where they were when we last updated these plans. So they're starting to think about the past and starting to try to start projecting into the future. So the first question that we have is, what challenges do you face on a daily basis living in Evanston? And essentially this question is asking about what makes your daily life a bit more difficult. It can be a broad range of answers. It's something that we're just looking to have people provide some feedback. It could be something that is very much a built environment response, or it could be something that is more related to resources. So again, pretty open. The second part of that, the second question, which is more of a part B, is when you think about those challenges, you can share a story or describe how the specific things that you listed have had an impact on how you operate. So that's the challenge question. We do then shift to the third question, that is, what do you love about Evanston? And this, again, can be something that's broad. We've gotten responses that have ranged from, I like the lakefront, I like the different restaurants that are here, the different parks. And again, this is something that could be just even as basic as what's keeping you in Evanston, if you wanted to break it down that way. And again, The second part of that, kind of similar to the second part of the first question, is how does that have an impact on how you operate on a regular basis? The third question is actually more so looking at a map, and this gets more into the built environment. So this is asking for a specific area or a specific site that you think needs improvement. And when we're having the meetings, the community meetings or the ward meetings, this is where people have the opportunity to put a dot on the map that specifically points to maybe a specific intersection. We've had people put dots that are on the lakefront or for a particular reason if they want to have more access or something like that. We've had people put dots that represent essentially like a whole area that they want to see improved, if it's a corridor or something like that. I think I'm thinking of one example where it's the underpass at Emerson and Ridge, that CTA underpass. That's one that has gotten a lot of dots. So again, that's something that's dealing more with the built environment. Also, part of this map exercise is thinking about your favorite place in Evanston. Again, it can be a park, it can be a particular store, it could be your school, just whatever, or if you have a favorite intersection even. And this is also something that we get a lot of feedback on. And we've also had some children that have participated as well that are able to contribute. So that's a good question that we've been able to see some good feedback on. The last pointed question is very much thinking about the future. It's envisioning that it is 2045 and assuming that all of the items that have been included in the comprehensive plan and the zoning code have been put in place. Assuming that is the case, how do you envision 2045 will look for Evanston? So this really kind of points back to what people want to see or what people want to see preserved. So it could be affordable housing, more retail spaces in more areas of the city, so things of that nature. And the final question is really just kind of an open-ended, is there anything that we missed or any burning question or big idea that you want to share with us? So this is where people are able to provide us any big ideas that they have, suggestions for things that they may have mentioned previously, and then we go to the end of that activity. The very end, which is important, that I mentioned the survey before. We encourage everyone who's at these meetings to fill out the survey at the meeting if possible before people disperse and might forget about the survey, because that is really the important demographic information that we get. So that is Meeting in a Box, running through it very quickly. I do encourage commissioners to fill out the survey if you are so inclined. You can do the Meeting in a Box yourself and provide any specific information or feedback that you've got for that as well. So
I've got a question. I understand the purpose of doing this and getting the input without any restrictions. But at some point, there are issues that, well, some of the issues that we've dealt with, like small houses and things like that, you know, that at what point in the process do those prompts, I'm calling them prompts, come into the discussion? Like, what do you think about small houses? What do you think about density? What do you think about high rises downtown? Or what do you think, you know, those questions, which might not come, they may come up in this, but they might not. So when does that come into the process?
So I think when the consultant is looking at the aggregate of responses, they'll be looking for themes. And I think within those themes, they'll be looking at things that probably have been suggested a little bit more. I think it'll likely be when we start getting a little bit more into the zoning aspect, where we might get more specific questions about.
When is that?
That'll be around phase 3, there'll be some things that'll be happening at the same time. There'll be some overlap.
So just to clarify, I'm trying to get a feeling of what exactly this vision statement is going to say. Is it going to be very abstract, like, you know, we like families and good people? You know what I mean? What's it? How specific is it going to be?
I mean, at this point, I can't really say. The vision statements typically are a little bit more broad, but they will probably mention some specific things, especially if there's some broader themes. But at this point, I can't say exactly how detailed or how broad that'll be.
I understand it's gradual, but I think at some point you got to get to the meaty, the issues that people get all excited about, you know.
I guess to follow up on that, at some point, you're going to have people who technically know the space to sit down and write something. Dense, boring, highly legalistic. Is the approach here to take the current documentation and mark it up, or to whiteboard this and start from scratch?
So,
Like some ways you can cut zoning into like 30,000 options and we're going to
Yes.
choose 4. How's that kind of, because all this is nice, as Commissioner Halleck pointed out, is somewhat abstract, mom and apple pie. Just if you give us a sense of the actual, how's the actual drafting of this going to work and what's going to form the basis of it?
so staff has done a preliminary audit of the code, and that was the pretty tedious process of going through chapter by chapter and seeing where things either are inconsistent, don't make sense, could be added to, taken out based off of how we've seen cases come up, or what we've heard from the community, what we've seen in the community. So that's kind of the baseline. I think the consultant probably appreciated having that initial look. They do have a sub-consultant who has done an equity audit of the code, so that's a little bit more information that they'll already have to work with. So I think that'll be the starting point, and then they'll incorporate some of the best practices and feedback that they've gotten from the public already and build off of that.
And I know some of the concerns that were raised at the initial meeting didn't seem to be, at least when the consultant was speaking, a lot of focus on the community, the economic development aspect of this, and what are the mechanisms that will be used to ensure that piece is addressed and dealt with in the redrafting process.
So you mean within the comprehensive plan itself? Or, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, and not having,
And that's an issue that may not necessarily
Yeah.
come up in the various community outreach sessions.
so I can say that economic development will be a part of the comprehensive plan. It's kind of woven throughout, but that is something that I think will build off of the Evanston Thrives plan, so they won't necessarily be starting from scratch with that aspect either. And since it's been identified as something that's a major concern, or just a major theme that people want to make sure is addressed, that will be something that's a part of the plan.
I have a question for staff, if they could provide some guidance. So many of us, we are also community members, obviously. And so we are getting invited to certain meetings. I've been invited to one for like Design Evanston, for example. My ward is one of the wards that will be doing the meeting tomorrow night. What is our level of participation outside of this particular group, or any pitfalls, landmines that we should avoid? Obviously, I mean, we have an interest in how this turns out, but we also will be involved greater than the average citizen is involved in the approval process of moving this forward. So I just don't know if staff has any words of wisdom or guidance that they would like to provide in how we interact as commissioners, but also as private citizens.
So I will probably need to circle back with our legal department to get something that's more official. But generally, it is when you're at these particular meetings, it's important to state that you are speaking as yourself. You happen to be a member of the Land Use Commission, but you are not speaking for the Land Use Commission. Also important, if you happen to be at a meeting and you see a couple other commissioners there, be very careful of that because it's Open Meetings Act issues that come about from that. But yeah, outside of that, I'll see if I can get an official statement or something from the legal department.
Yeah, because I want us to be involved as citizens and give our input that way, but I also want to avoid any appearance that we are over speaking our roles or anything like that when we're in these meetings.
That's fair.
Any other questions?
How frequent will your updates with us be?
We are really intending to provide some kind of update at least monthly, even if it's, yeah, even if it's just a short, we've had several meetings, or we will be getting some draft documents in however long. It may not be a full presentation like this, but you'll be getting some feedback and updates.
Is it along the lines that we were just talking about, of our participation in these other meetings? Is it appropriate to?
Is your microphone on?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it appropriate to, I understand when we're in the meeting, we're speaking as individuals, but I guess then it's not appropriate to bring anything we learned at those meetings to this meeting? Not appropriate, appropriate? Again, maybe I have to ask that, but I don't know. I just can see that as we all gain knowledge of this, what's going on, that we'll naturally want to bring it to this discussion, so.
Yeah, that'll be something else I'll ask legal, specifically as to how much those other meetings can inform what you bring back to the commission itself. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Any other questions for staff? All right. Thank you, staff, for bringing this forward. We look forward to being involved in this. Moving along to the next item, which is communication. Does staff have anything additional that they'd like to bring forward?
We do not.
All right. I will note for the record that there is no one in the chambers except for commissioners and staff, so public comment. So the next item is adjournment. Motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned until our meeting on Wednesday, April 17th at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Thank you.
I believe that meeting is canceled due to a lack of agenda items.
So we won't be here then.
We will see you in May.
So.
We can have that confirmed, though, I assume. Yeah, okay.
Is that because you've been so efficient?